Okay, so I apologize for the length of the last video. I just felt like I needed to say all that and help you guys kind of get your bearings straight. So this one will be much shorter, and I think all the subsequent ones will be, except for story time, because hey, it's story time. So, Stage 26 grammar, we're going to learn a third type of dependent subjunctive clause. We already learned circumstantial, we learned indirect question, and now a third one. And as always, I like to start in English. So look at these three statements here. He raised his hand in order to ask a question. Mr. Allen went down the hall to get some water. Brutus shut the doors to keep Tarquinius the superbus out of the city. All three of those sentences contain a clause, a dependent clause. I'm sure you could probably figure out where it is in the first one. It would be in order to ask a question. He raised his hand. That's an independent thought. So what are all, in the second sentence, the clause, the dependent clause would be to get some water. And then in the third one, it would be to keep Tarquinius the superbus out of the city. So what do all three of those clauses have in common? And the answer, as you could probably figure out from the title of Stage 26, is that they all express a purpose. They express the reason why the previous thing was done. Why did he raise his hand? In order to ask a question. Why did Mr. Allen go down the hallway? In order to get some water. I think you got it. Okay, so that those three clauses there are called purpose clauses. That's what they look like in English. Let's take a look at what they look like in Latin. And I took these from some of the stories here in Stage 26. Agricola ad tribunal processit ut pauca diceret. As you can tell by the bold-faced words, that would be the purpose clause. Omnes statim tacuerunt ut contionem agricolae audirent. And finally, Savius ad agricolam festinavit ut eum salutaret. What do you notice about these clauses? Well, probably the first thing that will jump out at you is the fact that all three start with the same word, ut, ut. And of course, that's one of your Stage 26 vocabulary words. Now, your Stage 26 vocab checklist defines ut as that or in order that. I think you could also translate it as to or in order to, and it would still make sense. So, take a look at, so what do you notice about these clauses? They all begin with ut, but take a look at the verb that follows them. You've got diceret, audirent, and salutaret. All three of those, they look like infinitives plus an ending, right? See how they all have an re, dicere, audire, salutare, and then they have a present tense verb ending on the end. What kind of a subjunctive is that? Let me see. Is it imperfect or pluperfect? What do you think? It's imperfect subjunctive. Now let's take a look at number one. How do you think that would be translated? Agricola proceeded to the platform, ut pauca diceret, to say a few things. And that's a purpose clause because it tells you why he proceeded to the platform. Look at number two. Everyone immediately got quiet in order to listen or hear Agricola's speech. Again, telling you why they got quiet. It's expressing purpose. Savius hurried to Agricola ut eum salutaret in order to greet him. Tells you why Savius was doing the hurrying. So, to break it down a little further, how do you recognize a purpose clause? Well, they'll always start with ut, but sometimes they can start with ne, N-E. Ut means to, in order that, or that. Ne means to not, or in order that, not, or that, not. It's called a negative purpose clause. So these purpose clauses always start with either ut or ne. They always tell why an action is taking place, and the verb in the clause is always in the subjunctive. Now, I'm sure some of you are probably wondering, okay, Mr. Allen, why is the subjunctive used here? Like, I don't get it. Why wouldn't they just let's look back at this one. He raised his hand in order to ask a question. Like, that's a statement of fact. So why is it in the subjunctive? I'll tell you why. Let's just look at he raised his hand in order to ask a question. My second year teaching, I had this kid named Davis Jackson. Great kid, really nice. Davis always sat in the very back of the room, and he would always put his hand up. And in my teacher brain, every time I see a hand up, even if I don't acknowledge the person at first, there's like this big alert that goes, woo, 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 hand up, must call on that student. And so I would call on Davis, and I would say, yes, Davis. And he would look at me with this startled expression, and he would immediately put his hand down, and he would shake his head and say, oh, no, I didn't have a question. I was just stretching. And he would do this over and over again. I taught this kid for 3 years, and I still would call on him. It just didn't register in my head. But what I did in my head was, I would say, oh, Davis is raising his hand in order to ask a question. In other words, I was making an assumption that the reason that he was raising his hand was to ask a question, when really, in actuality, he was raising his hand to stretch. Now, that, I think, is why the subjunctive is used in a purpose clause, because it does involve a person making an assumption about why an action occurred, and that assumption might be correct or it might be incorrect. Maybe I went down the hall to break up a fight. You never know. Just because I was carrying my water bottle out of the room doesn't necessarily mean that I went down the hall to get some water. Anyway, for those of you who are interested, there it was. For those of you who are like, oh my God, stop talking, then I'll stop talking and we'll get to the examples. Here we have 6 sentences, and omnes cives, let's take a look at number 1. Omnes cives ad solam contenderunt ut leonem mortuum spectarent. So, first of all, I want you to tell me, where is the clause? Put a bracket at the beginning of the clause and the end. Do that right now as you're looking through the sentence. And I bet you probably drew the clause right here, starting at ut and ending at spectarent. Now, what kind of verb is spectarent? Right here. What kind of a verb is that? Look at it. It's spectare plus an nt. That's going to be an imperfect subjunctive. So what does the first part of the sentence say? What is the independent thought? All the citizens hurried to the forest. And now we're going to find out why. They hurried to the forest in order to look at the dead lion. Oh my God, what was I thinking when I wrote that? How morbid. So there you have it. There's number 1. Look at number 2. Denique ego ad patrem redii ut rem explicarem. So, tell me where the subjunctive clause begins and ends. Draw brackets around it. It starts, of course, with ut, and it ends with explicarem. What's the subjunctive verb in that little clause? Really, what's the only verb? That would be explicarem. Okay. Now, here's the independent thought. And of those words, what is the main verb? The only verb, it's redii, which means I returned. So at last, I returned to my father to explain the thing or the situation. Once again, this is a purpose clause. It tells you why I went back to my dad. Look at number 3. Rex iter ad fontem fecit, ut aquam sacram biberet. So just like with 1 and 2, I want you to draw brackets around the clause. Obviously, it's going to start here with ut, and it's going to end with biberet. What is the subjunctive verb inside this purpose clause? Why, it's biberet. The main thrust of the sentence, the independent idea, is that the king made a journey to the fountain in order to drink the sacred water. So far, so good. Let's look at number 4. Equos celeriter conscendimus ut ex opido fugeremus. Okay, so just like 1 through 3, where's the clause? Where does it start? You can probably figure it out. It starts with ut, ends at fugeremus. Looks like fugere plus an ending, which tells us it's subjunctive. Imperfect subjunctive. There you go. Here is the main thrust of the sentence. Equos celeriter conscendimus. I want you to find your subject. I'll give you a few more seconds. Now, if you think that the subject is equos, you might want to reconsider. Look at the ending of equos. The accusative plural goes as, os, ace. It's the direct object. So equos is going to be our direct object. So therefore, the subject must be embedded within this main verb, conscendimus. And let's run through. O means I, S means you, T means he, she, it. Mus means we, tis means ya, and T means they, present tense. So the subject, therefore, is we. We climbed the horses quickly in order to flee the town, or escape from the town. Okay, let's look at 5 and 6. Number 5, Willam intravisti ut pecuniam nostram caperis. Where does our clause begin? You could probably figure it out almost immediately at this point with ut, and it ends at caperis. Let's see, capio capere plus an ending, imperfect tense subjunctive there. Capio means to grab or to seize. Willam intravisti. That's our independent thought. What is the subject? We know that intravisti, that looks verbish. That's got to be our main verb. What's the subject? I'll give you a second or two. Okay, if you think it's Willam, look again. The accusative case goes em. It's the direct object. So just like number 4, the subject is embedded in the verb. Now we have a V here, as in V sucks. That's perfect tense. See how this is sort of a review, by the way, of everything last year? So let's sing our perfect tense song. Iesti et emusis tis erunt. Iesti et emusis tis erunt. Iesti et emusis tis erunt is the perfect tense. It's translated as verb. And so the subject is you. You entered the house in order to take our money. Oh, scoundrel behavior. And finally, number 6, let's take a look at it. Quentus ad agricolam cucurit, ne savius eum interficeret. Now, what's the clause here? Well, if you looked at it, the pattern 1 through 5 started with ut. But if you'll recall, let's go back one slide here. Purpose clauses can also start with ne, and those mean to not, or that not, or in order that not. So this is sort of like a negative purpose clause. Quentus ad agricolam cucurit ne, that's going to be the start of our clause. And our clause is ne savius eum interficeret. And that was a terrible bracket drawing on my part. I'm not using the Promethean pen. Sorry about that. Although, look at that one. That one looks really nice. Wow. Okay. What's our subjunctive verb? Why, it's interficeret. And there it is. So then, looking at the main part of the sentence, Quintus ad Agricolam cucurit. Quintus ran to Agricola, ne interficeret Savius eum, or ne Savius eum interficeret. He ran to Agricola in order that, or so that Savius would not kill him. Dun dun dun. Once again, tells you why he ran to Agricola, but the reason why is stated in the negative, so that Savius would not kill him. Okay, so it looks like these videos are going to be longer than I thought, but hey, I know you're still listening, and I really appreciate it, and I'm trying my best to replicate what it would be like in a classroom to kind of walk you through this step by step so that you can be successful and study these notes for your quiz. And next class there will be some practice for you guys to do, and then the class following is when you'll have a grammar quiz, but Miss Jenkins will let you know all of that for sure. Okay, thanks. See you next time.